Hey everybody, welcome to Tales from a Professional Nerd, episode 14. My name is Bryan C.P. Steele, and I will be your nerd today, and every day that you watch my little vlog thing. So today's episode is called Community Focus and Organized Play. It is a little bit, concepts that a lot of people might hear around in the game stores, especially if you work at a game store, or if you've dabbled in playtesting or demoing for companies. You'll have heard those terms before. If you spend a lot of time on various websites or YouTube channels or forums or Facebook groups or whatever, you've heard those terms tossed around. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But if you've followed me and you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I like to take a few minutes at the beginning of every video and kind of give you an update on how my life is going. Kind of like a little living YouTube journal about what life as a freelancer is like. This week's been good. It's been solid. So I had not a whole lot to report. Is like, nothing like, oh my god, I won the lottery. You would know as that all kinds of cool things would be appearing on your various electronic medias that Bryan is spending money on making games for things that no one wants. Which is a lie. I'm sure someone out there wants. This guy, for instance. This week's been good. It's been a lot of kind of the same stuff as before. Working on some fiction. Getting ready for my big Gen Con charity event. Remembering how much I adore the Spelljammer universe as I start to put down the encounters and things for the charity game. It's so weird and it's so wacky, but it doesn't have to be completely tongue-in-cheek or just goofy to a fault. It can still be serious. It can still be an interesting and fun setting. And I'm looking forward to hopefully showing that and making some money for the charities along the side. So work-wise, I really kind of focused on two projects this week. I mentioned in my last episode that I had a meeting set with the guys at Blacklist Games. The Sadler brothers, love them to death, and I had a chance to sit down and have dinner with them and talk about some cool stuff coming up. So I've been working on that, and kind of in the midst of that, I got an email / phone call from a previous client. I talked about them a lot here, the Dungeon in a Box guys. I'm doing some work for them, but they the guy who runs that company, a gentleman by the name of David, David called me up and was like, hey, we got an issue with something. Do you mind quickly helping out? And anytime I get a chance to play with D&D stuff and write role-playing things, especially if I'm getting paid, I jump at it. And so it sounded like a great idea. The timetable was right. I had a good moment where I could jump in and get that taken care of. And I'm really glad that I hesitated momentarily, but I'm glad that I took it because this particular adventure, and I can't get too deep into it because of spoilers and things for people who might watch this and be close to that encounter or that adventure book. But it really kind of shakes things up a little bit. The previous author that I kind of picked up halfway on really had some very cool ideas and things that I have never done in a D&D game in all of my years of playing. I've never seen it done. I've never heard of it done. And I hope that maybe this might be something that we get to leave a mark, and people will go, hey, have you seen, Dungeon, have you read the Dungeon in a Box, season 2, episode 6? Have you seen that one? You haven't? You should take a look at this. And I think that would be, I think that it's going to be really, really cool. Especially how the mechanics that we came up with, kind of as a conglomerate, a coordinated effort. Think the end result is really fun and really cool, and a unique we'll say unique, a unique kind of species in this adventure. I can't get my mind around the fact that how fun it would be to play one of these. So I may very well, if I get some free time in the future, write up player character stats for them, and just even if I'm not getting paid for it, just to get those guys out there in the world and be like, hey, check these guys out. They would be perfect in Spelljammer. Let's see what else. Yeah, so besides that kind of work stuff, I finished a big commission, the Exit 23 miniatures for a client. Delivered those. He was really happy with them, which of course makes me feel better. I'm always nervous about showing, photos are one thing, but when they see them up close and get to look at the paint jobs, I'm always a little nervous that they're going to see something maybe that I missed, or they're going to go, hey, I thought we were going to do this color, or this blue is a little too blue, or whatever. And he really seemed happy with them, very, very pleased with the job. And in fact, took a couple of my business cards because he's going to take those models to a big event in September. He took some of my business. Let's try that again. And that might make it to the blooper reel. He took some of my business cards because he's going to be playing with these models, and he knows a lot of the people at that event might be interested in looking me up to do their teams. So again, super excited. That was fun to finish up. About ready to break into a new relatively big commission for a client and friend that I used to paint for a long time ago. I haven't for a while, but it's a ton of really cool Thousand Suns work that I did back in the day. He has still been buying models for his army, and I'm going to be painting them to catch up with all the stuff that we did before. So I'm excited for that. Again, sometimes my painting commissions, I was explaining that to one of the clients, is that sometimes these painting commissions do me a favor, aside from just paying me and helping me pay my bills, is that it kind of scratches an itch of, I see a really cool model that I'm like, oh man, I don't play that army, but I really want to paint that force. Is if I get a commission to paint that model, it scratches that itch. I don't have to go out and buy that model or buy that army, or in some cases buy the model, paint it, and then throw it up on eBay because I just really wanted to paint that figure. So I'm excited. We got some cool commission stuff coming up. An existing client that I do a lot of Fallout work for has said that he's got some more stuff for me. So there's going to be some more painting. So I expect probably another hobby day soon where we have the dual rig camera thing, and you get to watch me paint on some stuff and chit chat about things. But so two big things happened this week, or will be happening in one case. One. So story time. It's story time. It's no secret, if you can tell by my shrine behind me. I am an Aquaman freak. Pez dispensers, t-shirts, socks, life-size replicas of the Trident. If it's got Aquaman on it, I probably have at least like Amazon checklisted it, like I need to pick this up at some point. So this last Christmas, my loving, wonderful wife, during our Christmas present time, we're tearing stuff open and whatever, I got a little envelope, and in that envelope was a kind of her writing saying that she was kind of hoping that it would already be here, but in this instance it's not something that can happen. She won a contest that allowed her, basically like a charity contest, that allowed her to pick a celebrity, pick a style, and have a one-of-a-kind skateboard made by the esteemed Bear Walker. So Bear Walker is an artist who makes skateboards for Hollywood stars. A lot of times he makes it for charity and things like that, but he makes it for these stars, and he themes them. I'm gonna tag the hell out of him in the description of the video. but he themes them based off of like characters or movies. He's made a Shazam board for Zach Levi. He's made a couple of different Flash boards for Grant Gustin. He makes these kind of Hollywood level cool, they're totally functional skateboards. And I don't know if you know this about Bryan, but way back in the Wayback Machine, I used to skateboard quite a bit. And I'm out of shape now, and would probably break my neck if I tried to do half the things I could do back then. But my wife, knowing this and knowing that it would just mean a lot to me personally, is she won me a Jason Momoa themed Aquaman one-of-a-kind skateboard, and made by Bear Walker. And this week, it came in. And so check this bad boy out. So it is kind of got a metallic sheen to it. It's been, laser cut. All of these little scales are like like this. You would have no need for grip tape on this at all. But it comes with like high mount trucks, the spacers, everything signed by Bear himself. I'm super excited. I'm gonna get some way to hang it up into my shrine. But seeing that she was having a Jason Momoa themed Aquaman board made for me by this Hollywood guy to begin with, was already on the upper end of awesome. But actually getting to have it and opening it, and it almost makes me wish that I could drop 100 pounds and get out and skate again. I mean, I technically could, if I maybe cut off a leg and a half or something. But either way, super awesome, and I hope that y'all blow Bear Walker's Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. Blow it up, tell him how cool that is. I'm gonna make sure that he sees this video. Super excited. My wife's amazing. She does amazing things like that all the time. I wouldn't have met half of the cool DC media stars that I have, or become friends with the few that I have, if it wasn't for kind of her art and her business and her sending us out to these shows. And so much love. So yeah, that was the big cool thing that happened in my postage this week for me personally. And it actually kind of does tie directly in to today's episode theme. Is me and a couple of my friends are taking a road trip this weekend to go to the Dust 1947 picnic over in Toledo, Ohio. So Dust 1947 is a game that has had multiple versions. Dust Tactics, the original Dust. I think there was even another one before that, like Dust 2. I don't know the actual full schematics on it. And it's always been a game that I have eyeballed, and I've been like, man, that looks cool, but walked away from. Man, that looks cool, but I've walked away from. Well, this last Adepticon, my very close friend who works for them, Raymond Rappaport, Ray finally grabbed me and said, you need to do a demo of this game. You need to come play this game. And so I popped over to the Dust booth and took a much closer look at all these things. And I've always been like, man, some of these tanks, it's basically like an alternate reality World War II steampunk diesel punk, if you want to go that way. And then recently they even added in like the forces of Cthulhu, like the Cthulhu's mythos is rising, kind of like the bad guys from Hellboy, the first movie. Just some badass stuff that is in this game, and the models are gorgeous. Gameplay is on a big grid map, so I popped over to the booth and I took a look around, and I've known one of the owners. Actually, I guess I've known both of the owners, Paolo and I'm gonna butcher Greg's name. Greg. I'm gonna call him Greg. I've known Greg since Origins a couple of years back, we both judged a painting competition together at Origins, and ever since, he's just a great guy. Him and his wife, they're just great people. Paolo has been in the industry forever, and he is very very close friends with one of my former employers and very good friends. So it's just again, the industry is the size of a grapefruit when you really come down to it. And so coming over to their booth and seeing all this cool stuff and having friends in the industry that are in charge of this company, I've got faith in the product. Raymond swears by it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bite the bullet. I'm gonna make it happen. And so I bought a Force, and I love it. I think the game's great. It's not too clunky. I'm still learning some of the rules. There's still some things that I go, oh yeah, that's how that happens. Real basic dice system, but it's fun. It's a fun game. The universe is neat. For some of my friends that are very big into historical type things, it scratches that itch for them. For zombies and monkeys in power armor, it scratches that itch for me. And very soon, it's going to scratch my Mars Attacks itch, because it's got some very cool like gray aliens coming out with a new faction that's coming out next year. So all this cool stuff's happening, and that's just a handful of months ago. And Greg and Paolo announced that they're doing this this dust picnic in Toledo on a Saturday in July. And those tickets weren't expensive, and Toledo's only a handful of hours away from us. So me and my friends that have now gotten into this game, we're like, you know what? Let's take a nice car ride over. It'll be a couple of days. It'll be a nice break from reality, which is what I've always said gaming should be. And for the ticket price, they feed you. You get to play games and they feed you. So we're heading over there to this event this weekend. I'm sure I'll get trounced. My crazy Russians will get destroyed. Because I'm terrible at this game, but I don't care. I'm there to have fun. I'm there to play and throw some dice and maybe blow up some bad guys, good guys. I don't know. Especially now that I've realized that I think that my main faction is probably going to be the aliens when they emerge. The Vril is what they're called. But yeah, so this dust picnic. I think it's going to be it's just going to be a nice way to spend a Saturday, hanging out with some friends, making some new friends, playing some games, eating some food, maybe trying to see if I can't get Greg to throw some work my way because I've got some ideas for his game, because, I can't play a game without having ideas for it. But either way, it's going to be a fun weekend. Which leads us directly into today's actual topic. So today's episode is called Community Focus and Organized Play. So those terms get thrown around quite a bit. Community focus, community organizer, community manager, whatever. It all basically means you're keeping your fan base in line with the game with a positive forward momentum. And that is a difference of opinion on some games. I know, for instance, a game that it was my first published work, but I no longer play, called War Machine / Hordes, or Warma Hordes, as the community often calls it, has a very competitive, crush your enemies, see them driven before you, don't step up to this table unless you expect to get shin kicked style of community out there. And no, that's not all encompassing, and that is kind of a stereotype, but it is something that is pretty prevalent if you go to a lot of their websites and things that are focused on their playing that game. And then conversely, there are very lore-driven and fluffy communities, like, in my opinion, how Dark Age was and still is. A lot of those players are just there to kind of play and have a good time. They love the system, but they talk about the story as much, as they do this combination of models wins the game. And that's really what community focus is your I'm gonna sound so stupid. Your community is focused on gameplay and making sure that everybody's happy. That it's and whether that happy comes from a strict set of tournament rules, or I want the newest scenario, there's not enough scenarios out or anything along those lines, to, hey, let's throw a corporate picnic like the Dust folks and bring as many people out as we can to play, have a good time, and eat some food. Community focus is key. I do believe that community focus is extremely important to any game. You go down to your local game store, and if there are 2 or 3 tables playing this, 2 or 3 tables playing that, a side room having a role-playing session or whatever, it's a good feeling. It's a good concept idea. Like when if someone came to me, if I was the Mega Millions Bank and someone came to me and said, I want to open a game store, one of my first questions, being the person that I am, would be, how much game space do you have? And then, like, well, I've got so many shelves and things. There is nothing that turns me off from a retail game store faster than if they don't have any area for people to play. If it's literally just a sales kiosk with walls, that's fine, and that might be all they can afford to do, but it really, especially in today's electronic shopping capacities, you need to have a reason for your store to drum up the kind of camaraderie and community, get people out to your store, get them to sit down and play. I know there are stores out there that charge for table time, especially stores that have very specific, we only have 3 game tables, and if I just let anybody have them, they'd be constantly booked up forever with the same 8 people that can get here every morning or whatever. And I get that, and I don't fault people. There's a thing especially in my area, a very cool shop called Merlin's Beard, that is not so much a game shop. I mean, yeah, they sell some stuff, but it's a game cafe. It's a place where you can come have a sandwich, have a drink some coffee, play some games. So it's mostly just small tables for games, some area in the back. They just recently had a Kickstarter that to expand their facility. A place like that, you do kind of pay to play, but that's what keeps those doors open, and it's what keeps them being able to do things like, I know one of my very close friends he's a board game whiz, kind of that weird sort of savant type thing. He sits down and goes, "Oh, that's how the rules go. I win." But he goes and he has won trips to Vegas playing card games at this cafe. They have the ability, because they do charge for their table space, to create the kind of community of, okay, you understand, walking in these doors, it's not like the comic book shop down the way that had a couple of tables you could sit at all day if you wanted to. This is a place of business that requires you to pay in order to have some table space, but you get the benefit of this giant game library and players that are there to play, not to hang out and be jerks. So it all kind of depends on the specific. Their community is a little different than that of the more common game store. My other big game stores in town, we've got 2 real big ones now. Tier 1 Games and Sage's Shop, both of which are very cool. And part of the reason why I think that they are as successful as they are is their gaming space it's larger than, quite a bit larger than their selling space. Their selling space is well used. They've got good shelves. They've got good product. They can always special order you things. That's awesome. But the rest of the store, the rest of their landscape is tables and rooms and side areas and things for you as a gamer to come and play games. Hopefully with other people. Hopefully with games that you have purchased at that location. Help keep their doors open because you're using their space. It's that's just I really do feel that's necessary to your community, to your gaming community, if you will, no matter the game, no matter if it's, and actually across the scope of the games, I think that having a nice place to go play, perhaps with strangers, perhaps with friends, and not, this is not to say the stereotype of get out of your mother's basement, because that's silly. I grew up in my mother's basement. I did. My room was down there. So there. And look where I am now. I think that it's just for the industry and for the economy of gaming, it's good to see these games played out in the world. There are several games that I would have never thought to pick up myself if it wasn't for the fact that I popped into the store to buy a couple of pots of paint, or, oh man, I'm out of mat sealer, or whatever. And I saw out of the corner of my eye, hey, what's that being played over there? Those are cool. And I popped over, sat down, and watched for a few minutes, and go, wow, okay, that's cool. That's what I want. I would like to buy one of these, please. And that is something that I think that the industry needs. Now, I do think, and this I'm probably going to make a few enemies here. If I get any negative comments about my videos, it's probably going to happen right now. I firmly believe that if you are going to spend time in the gaming area of your local game store, that if you are going to take up their real estate, that you need to buy product from them. And that doesn't mean, I'm kind of going against something that I said earlier about, Kickstarters and stuff. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't, if you get your Kickstarter, bring it in and play with other people, because again, maybe they'll buy their copy from the store. It means that there is a very fine line between supporting your local store and loitering because they let you. I'm trying not to be a jerk here. There are always gamers that they go, well, I buy a jar of paint here, or I bought dice here before. Okay, think of it as a per hour situation. If you come to this game store and you play for 6 hours of whatnot, you took up their space for 6 hours, interacted with their customers for 6 hours, and you bought $6 worth of dice before you left. Was your time there worth $1 an hour to the store? Really? Maybe you should think of special ordering that cool new thing from them instead of saying, well, I can get it for 10% off at Amazon. Or maybe if there is a Kickstarter that you want to support, that you see, you've already got past the early board stuff, but you see it on the website and you go, I want that. And right before you click, you go, hang on a second, I'm going to talk to my buddy down at the game store and see if he is going to do any retail copies. I would rather support him than just give money straight to the system. So long as you're getting, all the bonuses and things. Obviously, I would never look at somebody and say, support your local game store, and then screw yourself over on all the cool Kickstarter exclusives. I think that since this video is about community focus, initially, this first half, is I firmly believe that you need to make sure that you support your stores. I'm not saying don't buy things from Amazon. I'm not saying, oh, you're evil if you go down to Target because they've got an exclusive. I'm saying that, just help your local store out. Buy some stuff. If you've got an old game that, you don't really need anymore, or maybe you want it off your shelf and there's not a real great resale value on it, ask your local store if you can donate it to their library. I'm sure, hell, some of these stores might give you store credit for some of these things. You might be able to help them out. And that is going to go a long way to helping out gamers in general. Because these store locations are super important to the industry. They really are. I know from a business standpoint, Amazon makes bazillions of dollars. Target makes bazillions of dollars. Kickstarter makes bazillions of dollars. And that is a measure of success. But for the industry to survive and thrive, they need gamers. Gamers buy games, as as a rule. Like, otherwise they wouldn't be they wouldn't have the games in order to be gamers. So making sure that these locations stay part of your community, part of your gaming community, is important. And I think I've soapboxed enough about community focus. Except I have one really cool story as I lead into the organized play side of this conversation. Which there's a reason why this video is not, why this episode is not called Community Focus versus Organized Play, because I don't think that they're separate things. I don't think having a strong tournament scene requires you to have a less active community focus. I think you can have both. I think you can have both in spades if the right drive and the right people realize what they're doing. Which brings me to the organized play side of things as kind of a bridge from community focus. I have been very fortunate in the fact that, in my opinion, while I was working at Dark Age, or while Dark Age was my game, it had, in my opinion, hands down the best, the most friendly, the most accepting, the most welcome and open community in gaming. I have never, in my history of being a gamer, seen players of a competitive game go to such great lengths to make sure that their other gamers are having a good time, that their other gamers are able to play the games that they want to play, going out of their way. We had one gamer in specific, and I'm looking at you, David Moffat. We may not have agreed on some of the design choices that I made while I was in charge of Dark Age, but I can say one thing, and I will, and hands down, there has never in the history of Dark Age been a fan who loved that game more than David. David Moffat, he played that game, still does, obviously, but at point levels that would boggle the mind. The average game was 500 to 750 points. And he started a thing where he would travel the country playing other people. Now, mind you, he was not an employee. He was not somebody we were paying to do this. He did this. We'd throw him some prizes every once in a while because it's awesome. But he did this because he loved the game and he already traveled for work. He would take his force, and it started out as the David Moffat the Moffat Challenge. Basically, you put together 1,000-point force, and you fought Moffat for kind of bragging rights to beat like the alpha Dark Age gamer, and he did this multiple times to the point that we made cool little like tokens that he would give out of, hey, you beat me, or hey, you played me, like just awesome stuff. And that kind of dedication and that kind of awesomeness bloomed, and he eventually played 3,000 point games. I want to say, and I don't have the notes right in front of me, I want to say that he had the ability to, he was like working toward, or even played a 10,000 point game, like made up his own house rules on how to do armies that big, and it's just insane, like a mad level of respect for this gentleman. And he is kind of like the flagship of what that community was all about. And is, I keep saying was because I'm no longer in charge of Dark Age, but there have been other gamers out there that have picked up that flag and are still waving it high, running tournaments, running events, running special things. It's awesome, and I'm personally humbled that a lot of that started taking place while I was in charge of that game, while I was doing my special videos. I did a lot of Facebook Lives of discussing how things were going with the game and whatnot, and that helped drive that community focus. But it was really the gamers that did it. Yeah, there's occasionally somebody who's like, rah, rassum, frassum, rassum, I'm no fun to play against. But for the general rule, I never really heard that many people that were like, I don't want to come play in this tournament because I know that there's going to be a bunch of jerks there. And that happens a lot in other events. So speaking of tournaments, now that this is what I meant by that story is kind of my bridge gap, is my bridge into the organized play. Dark Age had, in my opinion, the best organized play concept that I've ever seen. That organized play is basically something that the company, or a company, or a store or whatever, normally supported by that game, creates an organized system on how to play the game at a store level, or at tournaments and things like that, or at like conventions and stuff. So basically, here are a handful of scenarios that are specifically designed for our organized play, or for $20 a month to the company, we will send you special prize support. So like I've got a handful of things here that are like at any of the conventions. For Dark Age, we would create. Let me find a good one that you'll be able to see. We would create like these little. These are the same size as an objective. We create these little objective tokens that were specific to like so that's the Nova Open one, Origins 2017. So little things that you would get, Adepticon 2017, that you would get that if you came out and played these games. Yeah, so maybe a little bragging rights, maybe just kind of a cool. I got to walk away with something, sort of thing. But we would also create kits that a store could buy. So at a store level, they could run these official events and help drive forward the game with these special things that you could only get. And one of the things that we used to do was the Immortals tournament circuit. So it's a special circuit that if you played in here's one of the things for, so here's the Immortals CMON Expo 2017. Woo! That basically you would play in these events, and it went for a long time. It happened before I was even part of Dark Age, that these tournaments would earn you your way up to this special grand Immortal tournament once a year, and if you won that event, if you were the grand prize winner of the Immortals each year, that player got to help get turned into or help design a miniature to be added to the story and to be added to the game of Dark Age. And we did it something like in the neighborhood of like 13 or 14 times of these winners, these people who got to create their own storylines. And it helped us as designers, because sometimes these players had neat ideas that maybe we hadn't thought of, these cool narrative kind of side plots that we can go, all right, cool, that gives us a whole other cool idea that we can do. So the organized play, generally speaking, there's lots of little prizes like postcards and those little things, and we had these coins made. They're called Bloodgeld, which are actual physical representations of the money from Dark Age, so from the Dark Age world. Again, we had a very story-driven game, and these you were fighting toward this eventual Immortals tournament, and eventually you got turned into or helped with the creation of a character. So this guy is actually the last of the Immortals winners that they've done thus far. He's just a fencer, like a kind of guy that is based on the winner from that Immortals event, Mackenzie Adley Ewing. Mackenzie is, in real life, he is a fencer, and is very, very adept at it. So that model, especially in the face, looks a lot like him, and he's a fencing model, and we've worked it into the story that he works with the army that Mackenzie plays the most. And so that's the kind of thing that we did with the Dark Age Immortals as part of our organized play. That was the ultimate, tip top. A lot of places, a lot of other companies with their organized play is more along the lines of, hey, come out and play this cool event at your store and you get a thing. So like Wild West Exodus, I did not play to get this one. This was given to me by a fan. But this is like a special convention-only organized play model that if you attended a particular event, you could purchase that guy. So some organized play is less to do with the tournament and more to do with coming out and supporting the special event. Others are come out, play this tournament, get this stuff. Like another thing, a lot of times a lot of companies will use their organized play to support the stores, support the game, but also to release products that they know will be helpful, but also very eye-catching and the kind of thing that will help drive more sales. So like at Adepticon this year, if you played a demo at their booth and bought a certain set, you got like this cool neoprene game mat for, what was it called? Yeah, Warhammer Champions. Conquest. Warhammer Champions. And it's got like space for all the different, card slots and things. But it's also just if I have this sitting on a game, if I bring this out to the game store to play Champions with my friends, someone walking by is going to see that. And they're going to go, hey, well, instead of just seeing a bunch of deck of cards, they're going to see fancy script. They're going to see the logo on the side. They're going to go, oh, hey, cool. I know Warhammer. That's awesome. And that's part of what the organized play does is not only rewards the players and give them cool stuff, but it helps drive that game's appearance up as well. Or it can anyway. Depends on really kind of the system. I know sometimes the organized play prizes are just, here are some alternate cards for things you already have. Again, it runs the gamut. Posters, dice mats, or dice bags, all kinds of stuff. I know a lot of companies in the last couple of years have turned to making organized play kits into a product that only stores can purchase. Some of which have gone to the point where they have if you don't have some kind of electric online record of you playing the events to get these prizes, they will cut you off from getting new ones. And I don't blame them, because talking about community, talking about organized play, how they go kind of hand in hand, is they're a game that was notorious for their organized play kits or systems and products being amazing, just out of this world, is WizKids, specifically through HeroClix and Attack Wing, Attack Wing D&D. The organized play kits, or OP kits, for those systems they would contain 6 to 7, 8, 9 of these special figures that you can only get through the OP kits. And a week or so after they would appear in stores, or the event would begin, sometimes even before, you would look at eBay and these single figures would be going for hundreds of dollars. And a lot of times it's not necessarily because the person wants to have them all. Sometimes it is just completion's sake. It's I want to make sure I have one of everything for my faction. The only way I can do it is if I get this OP kit figure number 4 or whatever. And so you're willing to pay X amount to make sure you've got your completion of your force. But what ended up happening quite a bit is that some of these things were better, point-wise, game value-wise, rules-wise, than the things that you can buy over the counter. And The problem with that is that, you know, it's awesome that you get to reward people who win your games. You know, that win your tournaments and things. You should. They should get a super pat on the back and something awesome. But if you make it, if your organized play prize is something that will inevitably make them win more games, and not make them win more games because, oh, hey, cool, it's a neat thing that they need to learn to use, but just because it is better, that it starts a very vicious cycle of, well, I won this one cool thing in an OP, out of an OP kit, I included it in my next force, I won the next tournament, and I got the next thing that's cool in this OP kit. So now these two cool OP kit figures, or assets or cards or whatever, are in my force, and now I win the third one, and then I win the fourth, and then it really kind of snowballs. And a lot of companies in the last year, I would say, have kind of caught on to that. And while the OP kits might have something unique or something cool in it, more often than not, it is something on the lines of like a game board or alternate art cards. Bragging rights more than anything. Like, hey, check out these cool cards that I've got that I had to get in this tournament. All the stats and stuff are the same, but I have them and you don't. Which, I mean, that sounds a little... But it is better than them going, hey, check out this cool thing that you had to pay $180 on eBay for so I can beat your butt at the game. You know, the pay-to-play becomes really a problem. And I appreciate that a lot of your companies now, if they've got an OP kit, for the most part, it's cool toys, you know, tools for gameplay, but not necessarily things that you have to have, or alternate art, alternate sculpts, stuff that doesn't affect the win-loss of the game. And I think that's cool. I think that OP kits have come a long way, especially the ones that you have to pay for. And I think that if your local stores want to make your games and your tournaments more interesting and more attractive to other gamers, is get these OP kits. Get them out there. Get people wanting to come get cool stuff and run the events. There is nothing that bugs me more than a store that gets an OP kit and then doesn't run any of the events and instead breaks up the OP kit to sell at their leisure or throws all that stuff up on eBay. Sometimes, in some cases, that's actually like straight up against the rules of like the terms of agreement for buying the OP kit is don't sell, these are not for sale, you know, like these are for winning only, you know, that kind of thing. So that just bugs me. I don't think the store still exists anymore. There was a store around here that would buy like 3 of the OP kits as if they were going to run like 25 tournaments, and then run 1 or 2 to make sure that they stayed on the books. But then the rest of the stuff would just go up on eBay and they'd make thousands. And that bugs the hell out of me. Don't cheat the system. Don't make that company regret that they made this cool thing for your store to increase sales, so you and justify it by, well, I paid for it, so I can do whatever I want with it. Nah, you paid for it like advertising. You know, this is advertising for them with some physical aspects to it. Just be good. Do good for your community. Don't be a jerk. Yeah, that's where that's at. But yeah, so organized play, I mean, even without organized play kits, organized play is still something that you should want to aspire to at your store. Even so, there has never been. So I shouldn't say that. For D&D, for Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast has an organized play system called the Adventurers League, and that is basically standardized D&D missions that you can bring your character, if you've made it by the Adventurers League rules. You can bring it to a store and go, hey, which adventure are you playing? Here's my Adventurers League character. I've played in this, and this one. I want to do this. Shadowrun does it with Shadowrun missions. Pathfinder does it with the Pathfinder Society. Paizo does it with the Pathfinder Society. there are a lot of cool ways to create these organized systems. And I think that as a store, you can do your own organized events. There is nothing. So I recently pitched an organized event to one of my local stores that I hope that he bites on. Not only because it'll be fun for me to be there and help run this, but also I think that it can create some very interesting event spotlighting. His store has got several very active D&D groups that play on a weekly basis. 2 or 3 days/nights a week. At least one, if not two, of his role-playing rooms are filled with people playing these games on a regular basis. And I think that it would be awesome to get these groups together to duke it out and play in an organized event. So long as everyone knows that there's prizes at the end, and you're probably there to compete and play pretty hard, but don't be a jerk. And I am a big proponent of punishing people who are jerks. So if I am to run this event, I have no problem stating at the very beginning as if I feel that you are being unsportsmanly, and that does not mean oh hey, your guy did way too much damage, or you found a cheesy combo. It's you're cursing at someone. There's a 14-year-old kid here, and you're talking down to him because you're 40. There might be some warnings, in fact, and if you keep pushing, then maybe I will punish your, dock you points. I don't know how that'll work, but whatever the case may be, is the idea is to have a fun event, a fun day, helping make people enjoy a day of D&D that is not their average thing, and at the end of the day, help the store keep everything fresh and exciting and new, and give away some really cool prizes. So I'm gonna give away a little secret here. I'm gonna share some secrets that one of the best things, if you're a retail store owner out there and you're listening to this and you go, but I don't want to give away prizes because that's giving away merch, is there are three things that I'm gonna put down about organized play from a store level. And this is not one that where you bought a kit or you were given a kit from the distributor or anything like that. This is I've created my own event for the day. I'm running my own special 40K tournament. I'm running my own special D&D event. Whatever rules or game set you want to do. This is kind of these are my three guidelines. Is one, have someone running it that is not playing in it. Someone who is not involved in any way, not the buy, not the, I'm the just for fun person, literally someone who is not also running the store, because they need to be able to focus on the event, because the people playing the event want to make sure that they're being paid attention to. They want to make sure that they feel like their event is as important to the store as it is to them. So you get someone to do it. If that means offer that person some store merch, or buy them lunch, or be like, hey, 10%, 25% off for the day, you get our employee discount because you're basically being an employee. Whatever you need to do, help that person out so they can stay focused on the event and not be all over the place and, I had to worry about this, and I gotta do this, and hey, I gotta go run the cash register. Focus on the event. The event is what's important. The people playing that event, especially if it's one that they had to pay to get in, which we'll get to part number 2 here in a second, is they should feel that they are important. It is no different than if someone went to go pay to go see a movie in the movie theater, and they go up to the concession stand, and the guy at the concession stand's like, hey, hang on a second, I'm on the phone. I'm trying to give you money. I'm here to see this movie. Hello? Deal with me, I'm important. That's rule number 1. Just treat the event like it is an event, not just some random thing that got tacked on to the day. It needs to be special. Number 2, is don't be afraid to ask your players to pay to be part of the event. I know a lot of stores out there that are like, you know, oh no, I never charge admission fees for my events. Gamers understand that you have to keep your doors open. And they understand that for a lot of these tournaments and a lot of these big events, that you're going to keep your store open for 10 hours, maybe longer, sometimes past close for these events. And if a player is not willing to look at their store and go, all right, I can throw $10 at you to help for this event, not to mention pay for prize support, you know, pay for any advertising, whatever you need to do, is don't feel entitled that the store is just going to basically run this event because they love you. They're a business. Nobody runs these stores. Nobody keeps these stores open because they just simply love to. And if they do, they better be independently wealthy, because that's madness. So if you walk in and expect, all right, you know, I'll pay $10-15 to get into this event, also take into consideration what the event might mean. Some of these events, you just have like a door prize. You walk in the thing, I pay my money, here, take, you know, I paid $10, get $12 worth of cards. Okay, cool. Or it might be more of a gamble. Your entry is $15, but there's a good chance that you might have an opportunity to win a $300 prize package. Keep that stuff in mind. These stores, they run these organized play events for the community, but also to keep their doors open. So that's part number 2, is please don't be afraid to charge for your events. Don't feel that your gamers are going to completely be like, ah! Because they had to pay to get some of these products. They had to pay to become part of the, you know, the industry is about perceived value, and make the perceived value of your admission charge for your OP, make it worth it. Now, there is a slight caveat, 2.B on there. Don't use that as a way to generate a ton of money for your store. Don't be like, okay, my prize support is a bunch of free stuff that I got from the company, and it's $20 a head to get in. Your players are going to realize that you're just using it to basically milk them of money. Make it respectful. Make it a good combination of the two things. Did you have to buy this prize support? What's that prize support actually worth? What's your time worth? Do you say free bottles of water for the entire day while you're there? You know, whatever you need to do. But just make it fair, but don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to charge. Just make it a fair charge. And then the third big one in my opinion, for an organized play event is make sure that it is the kind of event that your community desires. And that's going to be the hardest one. That's going to be the hardest one to focus on, is because you're going to have to pay attention to your community. You're going to have to listen to what a lot of your players are saying, and you are going to have to be ready to not make everyone happy. For instance, when it comes to Warhammer 40,000, I don't really like playing in tournaments lately. My army, my Necrons, they're not terribly competitive unless I play army styles that I think are boring and stupid. I don't like facing some of the armies that have become the meta. And so I know that when my local store says, hey, I'm doing a really cool tournament, I look very carefully to see, are there any mitigating factors that will make that a fun day for me, worth paying my cost. If it's not, I don't complain. I don't say, oh, another 40K tournament that I can't play in. I just go, all right, that's not for me. You guys have fun. And I know that should I ever get back into Magic the Gathering, the card game, that Friday Night Magic is a competitive scene. I hear those players when I go into the store to buy models or paint or something. I hear those players, and sometimes they are nasty to each other because they are cutthroat for whatever prize support, booster packs, or whatever is going on behind the counter. That's their community. That's what they've got going on. And so if you're going to run a special Magic event, you got to realize that If you say, I'm going to run a Magic event, but it's going to be a fun event, your deck may only have one of every copy of the card, and at least half of them must be unglued cards. I'm showing my age. I don't even know if that's something that people use anymore. But you have to know you can't just slap together an event and go and hope that it's going to succeed, especially if you just put it together with what you think should happen. If it's your store and you want this organized play to be successful, pay attention to your people. If they are super cutthroat, win at all costs type gamers, then run an event for them. But just make sure that you tell everybody else that that's what it is on the tin. Right on the front. This is a cutthroat tournament. Do not expect sportsmanship scores. Do not expect, painting awards. This is about gameplay. This is about wins, losses. This is about crushing your foes. On the other hand, if you're running a narrative event that has all kinds of gotcha moments and special cards and, oh, hey, middle of the second round, okay, lightning strikes everyone's table, everyone roll a d20. The hardcore players are gonna freak. They're gonna be like, "Are you kidding me? That your random goofiness just destroyed my tactic." If they know that going into it, they can't viably complain about it. They can't be upset. They knew that was coming. They knew that stuff was going to happen. So the third big rule of organized play is be upfront about what your rule set is going to be and make sure that it is something that you believe will be played and accepted and enjoyed. Because that's, at the end of the day, everybody who's listened to any of my episodes know that my big thing is we are gamers, we play games. Games are to entertain. They are to take away the stress and heaviness of real life and reality for just a little while. So, no matter what, remember that. Remember that when you're setting up your organized play, when you're trying to push your community forward, is remember that it is about hopefully making everyone, or as many people as you can, enjoy that little slice of life. Because there's a lot of heavy stuff out there, and gaming really shouldn't be one of them. So with that, I see what time it is, and I should let you guys go and digest all this madness, and I am going to go get ready for a picnic. So you know how it is. Go out and enjoy your life. Go play some games, because you know I am.